Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. I am here, you guys. I'm so sorry that there has been a lack of videos. I know I took a break. I know I posted on my community tab letting you guys know that I was still working on content and I planned on coming back to YouTube, and that is still totally fully the case. I've been working on the Disney save in the background and I do apologize for the lack of videos. I have so much to talk about. I have so many things that have been going on in my life and big life changes and a lot of reasons why I haven't been able to post as consistently as I used to, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I've definitely been working on the save file. My patrons know this. Unfortunately, a lot of what I've been working on recently is very much just kind of in the background, and then I upload it to Patreon so people can take a quick look, and then I don't really have the time to get to the video aspect, even though I'm still recording everything and still making videos for pretty much everything. This is the last, final, and most difficult part, is finally finding time to sit down, edit a video, do the voiceover, and just go through everything. I just truly do not have the time the way that I used to, and that actually might be changing a little bit. That has a lot to do with some of my news that I have that I'm excited to share with you guys. But first, let's talk about what we've got going on in today's speed build, because if you are a long time watcher of the Disney save, you might be a little bit confused why we are doing a speed build from Evergreen Harbor. So I finished Evergreen Harbor almost a couple of years ago now, and at the time, one of my biggest gripes with the finalized version of Evergreen Harbor is that I did not do a community lot, and the pack that this world comes with, is the introduction of the community lot type. Or community space, I should say. I think that's the official term for the game. So I always used to say, I love Evergreen Harbor. I'm really glad that I did it when it first came out and the pack first was introduced to the Sims community, because I think this is one of those worlds where if I didn't fill it very early on, I probably would have struggled with the theming and all of that kind of stuff. But glad that I tackled it immediately when the pack released, but it did not have a community space originally, and that's something that's unique to this pack and I think really helps with the functionality of this world specifically. So I was never really happy with that and always was kind of hoping I could find a way to add one in. But it wasn't until I got a little bit further along in the Disney save and made some decisions that are going to be a little bit more permanent that I decided I was able to actually remove one of the original lots from this world. So what we're currently building on, previously this lot was Junkyard dogs. And I know there's going to be quite a few of you that are going to be sad for this news, but I am officially removing Junkyard dogs from the Disney save. I don't even believe it's available in the gallery anymore. I don't know what I decided to do with that off the top of my head. It's possible that I left it up on the gallery, but I don't intend to update it or patch it or fix it if anything breaks in the future because of updates from the Sims themselves. I've just decided to completely remove it and basically act like it's no longer a part of the Disney save, and this is the first lot to be completely replaced and just completely cut. So I'm going to explain a little bit why I decided to make that decision. So originally Junkyard Dogs was a residential for this lot, and I was so excited about the theming of it. I still think it is a really cool idea. It's this idea that they're living amongst the junkyard, and this was brought in from the movie Lady and the Tramp 2. So that is true to the movie. Many of the characters from Lady and the Tramp literally live in a junkyard, and I thought it would be so fun to make some of those characters into human Sims and create a rustic, thrifty, DIY items from the junkyard used as furniture and have that be the residential. So one of the characters lived in a bus and some of them lived in storage containers, which was also an introduction to this pack, was storage containers and building homes out of storage containers. So again, trying to integrate the idea of the packs into the save file. However, one of the biggest things that I think was possibly a mistake about doing that idea was that I created the characters from Lady and the Tramp 2 and used those as the basis of the idea for the lot, mostly because I couldn't come up with too many other junkyard ideas, and I really did want a junkyard to be this lot. Like, I just thought that that was such a fun build and really went with the theming of the world. And I remember going through Disney Wiki trying to find any Disney movie that had any relations to a junkyard. And I originally came across Lady and the Tramp 2 and thought, I don't really know how I feel about introducing the sequel movies. Even now, that's really very much in the air. I think it'll come and go depending on what movie we're talking about. But I wasn't really too keen on the idea of using Lady and the Tramp 2. And I think if you look at the overall theming that I went with for Evergreen Harbor, it is very much Pixar across the board, and then one random lot of Lady and the Tramp 2. It doesn't really fit. Another reason that I decided I did not want this lot anymore is really just because it is a sequel movie, and I think I'm going to eliminate that as much as possible. I don't want to have too many things from the sequel movies coming in. I want to focus very much on like the major Disney releases, not those like straight to DVD releases for the Disney sequels. I like some of them very much. I actually really like Lion King 2. I like Lady and the Tramp 2. But that's not really something I want to explore too much in the save file. And I think having one random lot that is a sequel movie in one of the worlds gives people the impression that I may be doing some of those things in the future. And it wasn't really the case. So I thought maybe eliminating it would give more of like a clean cut theme, and it would stop some of the requests for some of the sequel movies, because I just don't want to get anybody's hopes up, I guess, and making them think that that is really going to be something that I focus on when I've just decided I don't really want to, and I think it's going to muddy the waters of the theming for the Disney save. Another one of the reasons is because when I made this lot, I think at the time it was the third world that I had tackled. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a little while now, so I'm not sure. But I decided that obviously if this is going to be a residential, what we have to do is make these characters from Lady and the Tramp 2 into human Sims so that they can live here. So we had Angel and Baxter, and I don't recall I think it's Buster, isn't it? I don't recall all of the characters' names that originally lived here, but basically I took the dogs from Lady and the Tramp 2 and I made them into humans, and I thought they were pretty neat, actually. They were kind of unique compared to some of the other Sims, and they had a lot of my own influence in them because I didn't have a lot of background to go off of for the personalities of some of these characters. So it was one of the first lots that I was able to really just kind of do what I wanted to do, and for that reason I had a lot of fun with it. I got to do some of my own storytelling. I got to add in maybe a smidge of darker tones that some of the other characters do not have, that I thought was maybe kind of important to represent in some aspects and interesting, and just a different dynamic to play with, because this household was essentially roommates of different ages, different backgrounds, and they were all living together in an environment, maybe not by choice, but by necessity, and friends by maybe more necessity than choice. And I just thought that that was a different dynamic than any of the other things that had been in the save file and probably will be in the future. But ultimately, I have made the decision that I'm not going to be turning some of these like animal focused Disney movies into humans. So pretty much any movie that comes from Disney where the main characters are a dog or cat, and I have the ability to like perfectly replicate them using Create a Pet into a dog or a cat, I don't want to change them over into a human. And I plan on filling Brindleton Bay with a lot of these characters in these households. So, for example, the original Lady and the Tramp, I want to make Lady and Tramp in their dog forms, and then they do have owners that are humans that can be like the main characters of that household and run that household. Aristocats, 101 Dalmatians. I'm sure there's a couple of others, but I ultimately decided that it just feels so much more appropriate to me, and I'm more excited about the idea of actually making these characters look like what they're supposed to. Now, I may release versions of these characters that are like gallery exclusives where they are like their human counterpart. So I think that's a good way to maybe hopefully make everybody happy with the decision. So if you wanted to, you could still download versions of them off of the gallery that I've created, or really honestly create your own so that you can put them in the household and have them be human Sims that are more interactive and a little bit easier to use. But I think just having them look the way that they're supposed to was one of the most important things to me, even though you lose a little bit of the personality aspect in having them be pets. I just think it's going to look a lot better, and it's going to allow me to use Brindleton Bay the way that it's intended, which is like families and households that are focused on cats and dogs. And I'm really excited about that. So it didn't make sense anymore to have this household where some of these characters from a relating movie were human, and then I planned on making Lady and Tramp themselves into dogs, and then their son is like running around as a human, or their son's girlfriend is running around as a human. It totally just didn't make sense anymore, and I decided they had to go. And I hope that everybody understands that decision. So that's kind of the background of why this ended up being the change. And then what it circles back to is basically I needed another junkyard type of idea, and one of the ones that was originally brought up to me but at the time just didn't spark enough interest for me to actually pursue it was to make a Mater junkyard or something with cars, because again, I themed this world very, very heavily after Pixar movies, so it made sense to do cars. I think just at the time I really wasn't into the idea very much, and I was, I just wanted to maybe wait until later to do cars, and we may do more cars in Strangerville, so I just, I was like, no, I don't really want to do cars, let's do Lady and the Tramp. So now that we have everything a little bit more cohesive and we have the opportunity to do not a residential, this is a community space. I've themed this after Tow Mater's Towing and Salvage, which is a real location in the Cars movies, but also it's based after the ride in Disneyland. So if you recognize some of the general shaping of the way that this is done and planned out, it's because I used the Disneyland ride as the reference. So never been to Disneyland personally, but just from some photos and things like that, there were some cars or some tractors, and there was it's generally like a go in circles kind of ride, I think. But I used that as the shell of this build. And then I thought it would be so fun if we had a Tomater towing and salvage junkyard that was a community space, so it remains a junkyard always, and it has all of these cars around and these junkyard bits, things that you would expect from this type of a thing, especially if it's not so much of a traditional junkyard, but more so where you would just get rid of cars or bigger electronics and pieces like that. And then they sort of use the space the way that you would vote. So it doesn't transform completely. A lot of the background still remains the same. The fencing, the barrels, and the tires and things like that all still remain. But depending on how your Sims vote for it, it will change into the appropriate lot that is more focused or themed on that lot type, but it still has the same shell. I hope that makes sense. So basically the original standard regular version of this lot will be just the shell with lots of cars, some garbage sort of strewn around, some actual those stain puddles and things like that from Strangerville, and it'll be a little bit dirty and messy and just lots of stacks of things everywhere. Just a basic what you would think of for a junkyard. And then the options for a community space are a garden, a market, a community maker space, I believe it's called, where you can come and just kind of create things. So if you vote for one of those three, this place gets a little bit more transformed in either one direction or the other. So you're going to start to see some of that kind of come into play here. This is the shell and the standard version of it. And I did think it was kind of fun to make some of these cars have eye lights on them. So it's kind of a reference to the actual Cars movies. I don't know completely what we're doing for Cars for the save file. I don't know if those Cars characters will be turned into humans. In some ways, I feel like there's really no way getting around that, or maybe in the future, if we got some kind of special occult, maybe even a robot that was a little bit more intricate or able to be edited, versus we do have some robots in the game, I believe, from Discovery University, but you're not really able to edit them the way that I think I would want to create exactly kind of what I have in my head. But we can do some little Cars shout outs here and there. If we don't end up creating the characters, then having some lots that are maybe themed after Cars in general, I think is totally fine. And with the save in general, I never from the beginning said that like we're gonna make every Disney character ever, so I could definitely see certain characters not making it. Not saying at all either way that like Cars and the Cars characters are not gonna make it, because I know so many people love Cars. I'm just saying that maybe, you know, if there were certain characters that did not make it, then we could always just make a lot that's in reference to that movie and those characters without necessarily going in and creating every single character from every single movie. There's going to be some that get skimped out on a little bit here and there. The new world that we are going to be working on, and I know I'm like kind of jumping ahead of myself here by saying this, but I did mention it in a previous video. It's just that it's been a while since I've made any content, but we basically for the next couple of weeks here, I'm going to be uploading some content that is updates to the save file. So this one that's getting updated, I have an update to a character from Hemford on Bagley. I have the tour video for Hemford on Bagley that I'm working on for you guys, and then the world we are moving into next that my patrons have voted on is Sulani, and I immediately jumped into Moana, who is going to be a part of that world, and I've already created her family and her and some of the townies from Moana, and I believe also her residential. So that's some of the stuff you can look forward to in the next couple of weeks while I get back caught up on some of the content that I have had stored for a while now. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later down the line. I feel like I have so much to tell you guys, so I'm jumping a little bit from topics here and there, but I promise it'll get cohesive as we move along throughout videos. One of the things with creating Sulani that I realized really quickly is that I did not have as much room in Sulani as I wanted, and there's so many characters and great movies and so many fun things that we could put there and so many great ideas that unfortunately some of them are going to have to be represented in more of the form of maybe just a little reference here and there or a townie or a smaller speed build, and we don't end up creating any characters for it, but that's just sort of our shout out for the movie type of a deal until maybe we get more future worlds and things can kind of grow a little bit. I know we got Tortusa, and that opens up a lot of doors for some movies that we maybe were not going to get so much room to focus on and now have a lot more space to do so. And so you never know, it could always change down the line. This entire lot is because of changes that have just come to the save file and decisions that have been made that caused me to be like, you know what, I need to go back to Evergreen Harbor and change this and finally be happy with the fact that this world has a community space, because it so just desperately needs one for the world to function correctly, and get rid of the slot that I was never confident about and that I never was truly happy with. And that can always happen. Even in Willow Creek, I've made some big changes to Willow Creek because we got Hemford on Bagley added. So it's always just a rotating work in progress. And of course, some things will always remain. Like you guys know, I'm going to keep my castles. They're not going anywhere, right? And the families that live in them are not going anywhere. But some of these little offshoot lots or things that are more like my creations and ideas are more likely to change down the line than other things, because of the fact that if something comes up that just makes more sense to replace it, I'm not going to miss that opportunity. And I think that this is truly a better choice overall for this world. And you can sort of see the idea of what I'm talking about coming together here. So for the community space, the first one that you have an option to vote for is the community garden. And we're keeping the general shell of everything and just sort of filling it with plants. So like the tires get extra plants, the furniture, the tubs, the beds of some of the trucks and things like that get little flower beds. And of course you have like the things that are required for each lot type. So this is like really a space where your Sims could come in and actually garden and things like that. But as far as the decor around it, it is a junkyard. It's clearly like a little bit more messy, and you're utilizing the space in a way where it's not like the whole thing gets cleaned out and now we have this beautiful luscious garden. We are utilizing what is already here to contribute to the lot and make it the most functional space possible and still keep the theming. So this is my way of like integrating Cars in and bringing another Pixar movie in and still using this space in a way that's going to make a lot of sense functionality wise for your game and for your Sims. If you like to use community spaces, because I'll be honest, I don't see people use them very often. And the way that I've put these into the save files so far is I think of them as like, these are lot types that transform. So we can use them to change a lot and transform it into something else or another idea or Something like that. Like I did use a community space in Hemford on Bagley, and it's Brave themed, and it transforms to 3 different versions of the Witch's Cottage and then the stones from Brave as well. So that's kind of how I think of community lots, or how I've used them up until this point. But I think that this is actually truly the way that community lot types are expected to be used. And it's okay, because like I've said a million times, this is the world that came with this actual lot type. So it makes sense to have one working in its full capacity in the way that it's intended at the world where they were created and built for. And I think a lot of the households here are younger and their families, and even we've got Wally and Eve, and they are a part of some of the roles that this world comes with. I believe Eve is the eco-innovator or something to that regard. There's specific role types that come with this world that make it function the way that it does. So it is really important to just have something here that, you know, makes the pack work the way that it's supposed to. So I think that this is a much better choice, and I really, really hope that you guys are not too upset that we're losing Junkyard dogs, because I think either way, like, I got so many mixed opinions on that, and it was either everybody, like, it was your favorite and it was interesting and you just loved it, or people really, really did not like it. And I can see like a few reasons why that I'm not going to go into, but altogether, maybe just eliminating some of the weird and broken storytelling of some of the sequels is ultimately the best decision. With that being said, I'm going to make a few exceptions here and there. The only one that I can give you right off the bat that I have decided, again, we're going to Sulani here very soon. So The Little Mermaid, my favorite Disney movie of all time, will of course be a part of Sulani. And so many people, I think because she's the only Disney like daughter from one of the main couples, have asked me if I'm going to make Melody, and I think I have to. Like, I'm so excited about the idea of creating her and just making her like a fun little teen mermaid, but I'm gonna make her a gallery exclusive, so you really should follow me on the gallery. I have my gallery ID linked down below. I believe it's TomilynYT, and it's important at this point for you to follow me on the gallery for a few reasons. I've been really good about updating content, releasing content. If you follow me on the gallery, you already have access to the Hemford on Bagley households and builds before the World Tour has even come out, because they have been tested and up for actually a few months now. So it's a good thing. And also there's some things that just will never be in the save file, but if you want them, they will be on the gallery. And I think she's going to be one of them. Also, my genetics and the way that I make Sims is a little bit exaggerated. The eye shapes, the facial structures, I really, really kind of go for it. I don't know if it's like my style necessarily, or if I'm just trying to mimic some of what is a part of Disney to really get like the resemblance there as much as possible. But what that results in genetics wise means that babies and even just having your Sims age up causes a little bit of issues here and there. So if you have, I can already picture like Ariel and Eric and the version that I'm going to create of them. If you have them actually make a child, the odds of them coming out looking like Melody are very, very, very slim. So it's maybe just something where you could download it and have it just for the resemblance aspect. But I do think I'm going to make her. I don't know about any other future characters from any of the other Disney sequels, but we will see. It remains to be seen. The next version of this lot type, I believe, is called the Market, and it's basically just that you have different stalls. Sims can come and sell things that they've created, and I just wanted this to be like a space with a lot of different stalls and things, obviously, that you need for the lot to function in this form, but it has more like we're blocking off some of the junkyard aspect. We're putting up faux walls. It almost felt kind of like a flea market to me, where you kind of fill a space in. It'll be like a warehouse or a predetermined location, and the way that everybody sort of sets up is like you get these faux walls that everybody brings, and it feels like your own little stall area, and you sort of like block out the background and maybe even use those backdrops as like a way to hang signs or some of the stuff that you're going to be selling. But it feels very flea market, and I think that that's really appropriate for this lot. So there we have that. And you'll notice as well for this lot, basically there's 2 sections to it, right? There's like the main section over to the right, and then we've got a little bit of a smaller one to the left. So I tried to utilize both spaces so that you had something different going on in each side of them. So on the right here, we have more of like the actual stalls and things where you would sell your own creations. And then the one to the left is where you could maybe get like a snack or something. And again, very flea market vibes. Still keeping the general backdrop, cleaning it up a little bit. Like the first version has trash laying all over the place. And then I went around and deleted the trash. I maybe removed some of the boards or stacked them up together because I imagined people actually coming in here and trying to clean up the area and be like, okay, we're going to use it for this. So what do we have to do? And maybe we can't get rid of everything. So, well, we could at least stack all of the boards together. We could push all of the barrels into the same area. We could clean up some of the broken pieces, and the trash would obviously go away because you can't have that laying around. But a lot of like items would be collected together and then they would get maybe pushed to the back, but at least to similarly put together pieces so that you have like a stack of wood, a stack of this and that here and there. Or even some of the bits have been like moved to the outside of the fences. Some of them weren't, like these barrels that you have that are filled of whatever, all sorts of toxic stuff, I suppose. Maybe those get collected together and you're not able to move them as easily, but some of the piles of stuff get moved to like corners or behind the fence lines so that you have a little bit more room. And then the last version of the community space is the maker space. And this is the first time I've been able to do a community lot where I've been able to use pretty much all of the machines that you want for this space correctly, because what I've created in the past, I've had to have a maker space, and so the game requires you to use certain items, but I try to avoid the items if they look like too modern or they don't fit into the theming very well. So in the past, I've used this lot type for Belle's Village, and I don't want these really modern pieces of equipment all over Belle's Village. So I've been really lucky that I have been able to find a few versions of some of these pieces all covered up and rustic looking and old and medieval. They're done by Sadie Sims. I have talked about that so many times, so definitely a really, really great person to follow on YouTube and the gallery. But she's created some medieval versions of these items so that you can hide them in older style builds, and they have become so important to me making like this save file. It's been a game changer. But this is the first time that I can actually use pretty much all of the equipment and the pieces the way that they're intended and have them be really accessible and not worry what they look like, because this is Cars themed. I can do pretty much whatever I want in terms of technology, and it's a very modern movie, so I don't have to worry about any pieces of equipment showing. And so I went through the list and used pretty much every single thing that I could. I haven't play tested this lot yet, so I am a little bit worried about the space and the tiling for using all of these items. I did want them to all be covered and feel very much like each their own thing. So I have to play around with it a little bit to see if this is working properly, but I think that in general it'll remain the same. Usually, even if I have to make some changes to a build based on things that I like aesthetically but aren't working properly when game testing, I find ways around it, or I'll just make the area slightly bigger or remove something so that I can have a little bit more room to keep it the way that I originally wanted. With that being said, you guys, we are coming up on the end of the video here, and I just wanted to take a moment to say I do have quite a bit of videos that are going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks. I apologize again that I have taken some time off. I will explain a lot of the things and the changes that have happened in my life and things that have contributed to it in some future videos when we have a little bit more time, but hopefully you guys are excited to see some of the stuff that's coming up in the save file and to start a new world with Sulani. I think a lot of you are going to be really excited about some of the stuff that we have planned for that, so I'm excited to share. If you want to support the Disney Save on Patreon and get early access to a lot of the stuff that I create for the save file, the link is in my description box down below. It gives you perks and early access, and it's the most direct way to support everything that I do here. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will talk to you all in the next one.